and welcome to this episode of the Gunman Raw. So today we've got this VE Commodore wagon in voodoo blue to paint. Pretty straightforward job. We've got a brand new rear bumper over here, all ready to go. I did a little last minute spot repair, prep up on that because my boss actually didn't tell me until that was in the booth. So usually I don't do those kind of repairs or the prep work in the booth, but I was forced to today. So anyway, all of the edge masking is done and we're going to finish the masking off. Edge masking is done, we're just going to cut it out and then we'll be doing the wax and grease remover. We'll wipe them down, we'll wipe the bumper down with some water cleaner. That's just what I do with my bumpers. And yeah, so today is Friday as of making this video. Lots of people have been seeming to enjoy the daily uploads on the Raw channel. And yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. I've been enjoying making them. It's been a bit of fun. You may have noticed I finally got my hair cut. Here in Melbourne we've been in lockdown for, I think, the world's longest lockdown. It was, I think they said, is it 77 days or something? Like, either way, it was like nearly 3 months straight. And as of last weekend, I think we were allowed to go and eat in restaurants or something, and tomorrow, like, all retail's open. So it's pretty much back to life as normal. Only if you're vaccinated though. And I got my second shot, not yesterday, but the day before. I got the AstraZeneca vaccine, and yeah, I'm feeling better. Like the first shot, that was the bad one with AstraZeneca, and the second one, I was sort of a little bit up and down yesterday, but nowhere near as bad as the first shot. So, I mean, usually we would take these kind of parts off, but this car here is kind of getting a little bit old, and like definitely looking at this, it's all perished, all this rubber's perished. I don't want to go and bust it and break it and make a mess out of it. So honestly, a job like this, it came in with those parts still on. I didn't even ask to have them removed this time. It's like, well, the panel beaters and the bosses know what's going on. If they wanted them off, they probably would have. And as I say, like, cars these days, I think not many people are going to disagree with me when I say they're really not made to last. I think that's a pretty well-known topic. They don't make cars to last anymore, unfortunately. I mean, yeah, like my Tirana, which is another Holden too. This is a Holden Commodore VE. My Tirana, the 75 Tirana, is probably in, if you take the rust out of it, like trims and all that kind of stuff, probably in better condition than this, you know? Just all the plastic, and especially if you don't garage them, you know, I think they're not as bad if you garage them, but obviously I would say this probably hasn't been garaged. But yeah, that's kind of the point I got to with the more current model Holdens. You just see them falling apart. I think Fords are probably a little bit better, but not far off, to be honest. Yeah, these, as I say, they're just, and you look at the door trims and the door handles and all those plastic parts, they're just really not made very well. And, you know, no offense if you own one, like, don't let my opinions on the quality of your car bother you, because as I say, if you look after them well, they're actually okay. Like if you garage them and you sort of fix some of those things as they go, then they can be good cars for you, don't get me wrong. Like I'm not against them, I don't hate them, like, yeah. But, you know, I was just driving to work this morning thinking about it, and I've got my little Toyota Corolla, man. That's by far the best car I've ever owned, you know. Just efficient and reliable, and it barely costs me anything. I give it a service each year, and that's about it. You know, it costs me a few $100s each year. It runs on the sniff of an oily rag, really doesn't use much petrol. it looks okay. I'm not trying to say it's a cool looking car, but for what it is, it looks alright. You know, I did the black roof on it, and yeah, I don't know, I like it. I just, back in the day, I always used to buy cheap cars, and then I would end up spending loads of money always fixing them. So yeah, my Corolla is like the first sort of real modern car that I've ever owned, and yeah, it's a real pleasure. And I'm probably, at the very least for a daily driver, I won't be going back, you know. I can see myself doing up an old car, maybe as a weekender or a project car or something like that, but I wouldn't really want to daily an old car like I used to. Like my last car, the XF, I really didn't have much money back then, you know. I used to spend all my money every single week. I used to drink and smoke and some other things that I probably won't get into. You can fill in the blanks. But yeah, so like that XF, I bought it for $2,000, but I bought it on a credit card. Like, that's how much I didn't have that much. I didn't even have $2,000 to spend on my car. Now that was like 2008 or something like that. But then one thing is, you'd spend so much money on the fuel because it was so thirsty on the fuel. But then, you know, you all like the carby would go, or the tuning was out, or you know, you do a suspension component, or you're braking stuff, you know. As I say, like, you're just constantly fixing stuff, and bigger picture, over 5 years, you probably spend more on that than you would have, you know, if you just said, hey, I'll spend $10,000, even if it's not a brand new one, you get something more modern, even if you were to say, go get a car loan or something like that. But yeah, I've learnt my lesson. And that Tirana of mine, on that point, I bought that for $800. I got it off one of the guys I used to work with for $800. He just didn't need it anymore. That thing's probably worth about probably 30 minimum, 30 grand as is, with some rusty panels. It's up at my dad's house in the country, sort of rusting away. I'm actually going to get myself a house with a garage in it April next year, and I'll be bringing it down to Melbourne and slowly doing it up, or at the very least tidying it up and then just selling it, and then maybe buy myself that dream car Mercedes that I've wanted for ages. Who knows, we'll see how we go. Anyway, Gunman rant, you love it. I'm actually going to be recording a video for my main channel at lunchtime today, a bit of an update on the PPG EnviroBase. I'll do one in the paint room, and yeah, just to let you guys know how I've been adjusting to it, I guess. Pros and cons. So as I say, like, we're leaving some of these parts on, so because of that I'm going to be doing some fine line taping, but you may notice I haven't put the fine line on yet. I'm going to put it on last so that I can peel it off once I've finished painting, and that way when the paint is still, the clear coat's still fresh, it can sort of melt in rather than leaving an edge up around here and down the bottom there. Apart from that, I think we're ready to start prep soldering. I always like to wear my gloves when I'm doing the prep soldering stage. Yeah, that prep solder stuff can be pretty harsh on the skin. It like removes all the oils and stuff from your skin. It's pretty nasty chemical. Not as bad as thinners, but still avoid getting it on your skin if you can. Here's my microfiber cloths. I gave them a washout last night. Always inspecting for cut throughs. You might have missed it when you're doing your prep work. Just inspect those blends while you got your preps all over it. That's what I like to do. Let us know what you guys think about the video quality. I think I've finally nailed it. I think I got rid of the flickering. but we still have a good quality. I'm on the GoPro 10, just for anyone who's interested. GoPro 10, and the settings I'm running is 2.7K at 50 frames per second, and just a standard bit rate. So for whatever reason, when I was recording at 4K at 50 frames per second, it would go all flickery, and then I just bumped it down to 2.7K and the flickering went away. So it's a strange thing. Flickering's meant to have something more to do with either your shutter speed or the frames per second. But yeah, even at 4K I had the frames per second right at 50, had the shutter speed right, but it was still flickering. It was like a weird, like woo, like a real wave coming through the middle. It was a strange thing, but yeah, back down to 2.7K, which is still fine. It's all good. Boring you with the details, but yeah, thanks to those who have offered some advice and guidance. I mean, sometimes you just got to try and see what works, really. We got a little repair down here. I still got to give that a quick scuff. I do have some sandpaper up here. I just got to give the primer a little sand. Yeah, so this one's really not going to be perfect. Like, there's stone chips all over it, and the boss just said just a real quick one, cheap and nasty. Like, there was some big gouges. it was like all dented through there, so I just wiped some body filler in there, and they're going to call that all good. So first thing we're going to have to do is wet on wet this bumper. As I mentioned before, I like to use the water cleaner. That should be enough. I like to use the water cleaner on the bumpers because that's going to get rid of any... Where are we going to put you? You can go over here. That's going to get rid of any static. I actually had someone leave a comment this morning, and he's saying that he uses Windex or something instead of Prepsol. Thought a little bit different. There goes my blower. Looks like there's a little bit of dust over here. Maybe that was from... oops. Bloody shit all over the place. Yeah, I mean, that same guy who's talking about Windex, he's like complaining about how much of a messy painter I am or something. He was being cool about it, but it's like, man, what do you want me to do? Like, it's not my job. I'm not going to go and start kicking a stink up about, you know, cleaning the walls on the booth. I mean, I might mention it, but as I say, like, he was being cool about it, but it's like, well, I don't know, man. I'm just doing my job. Like, I'm doing my best with what I got to work with, you know. Smashing the jobs out, mate. Making everyone happy. So from here, I won't touch that with a tack rag. I'll just give it a high pressure air blower. Now this should not have any static in it after this. Yep, there is none. There's no static there. So it's nice and clean. Last thing I'm going to do, just a high pressure air blower and then wet on wet straight over the top. I'm going to go out, I'll turn the cam off when I'm mixing the wet on wet because there's probably some people in the paint room that don't want to be on my videos. And I'll be back here when I got some wet on wet in the gun. Rightio guys, so I've got the wet on wet primer in the gun here, so It's a plastic wet on wet. So it's got the plastic primer mixed in with it. And yes, that's an official PPG product. I'm not just making my own little concoction. Gotta make sure you get these edges. More so on the front bumper, but you do actually, on the front bumpers, it's easy, you do actually see that inside lip. I can't remember if you see it on the rears, but I do know you see them on the front. Because sometimes if you just paint just the under, but not the inner, you can get caught out. I did a spray out card for this colour, and I did two actually. I did like one with this primer and one with the one shade darker primer, and this one was actually the one that looked better. So yeah, the blues don't cover very well at all, and this is no exception. You may notice I covered up that little spot repair just so I don't get wet on wet primer all over it. And I'll go clean this gun out and I'll see you back here when we're ready to put some colour on. So I'm actually not ready to put the colour on yet, but I just found a last minute little stone chip. It turns out that's actually not filled in with the primer. I had a last minute. So I just thought I'd show you guys. This is actually a little bit of silicone. I might sand that one out too. I don't know if I did do another video where I showed, but I'll do it again. 500 grit. There. And that one. So yeah, I thought I'd do this just so you can see why I rant on about how much I love this UV body filler, because it's just so fast. I think, yeah, I did actually do another video where you got to see it sort of like live in action. That was on the RAV4. I think I did like a RAV4 bonnet. Apart from that, it was just probably what you have seen on my main channel, and I don't know, there's something about the edited versions that, I don't know, there's something about seeing it live in action that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that's about us. Put the lid back on. You may have noticed that I actually like to hold that right up on the panel. I find, one, it dries it better, and second, you don't get the UV light reflection onto yourself, which, I don't know, I think they've actually managed to narrow down the bandwidth of the UV lights to make it to, I think it's like 395 nanometers is the wavelength. So I think, from what I hear, it's not as bad as what the original ones were. So the original UV lights were like a globe, and supposedly they used a much larger amount of the spectrum, and they were doing people eye damage. So yeah, with this one, I think we'll just be able to sand that out in the clear. This has all been done before, this car. So this is just about a 500 grit, so we might go over the top of that with some 800, just so I don't get stuck with any deep sanding scratches. Obviously we've made a bit of dust. It's not the end of the world. We'll give it a blow down and a tack rag and maybe a wipe down with a microfiber again, but that's all good. As you can see, like a couple of minutes downtime rather than mixing up your 2-pack filler, and the amount that I use, like you may have noticed I put most of it back, so now you get to see in real time why I love this stuff so much. Anyway, I'll see you back here when we're ready to put some color down.